Hi guys, welcome to Irish Footy Vlogs. Welcome to the First Division review show. Delighted to welcome Keith Ryan today. Keith, how are you?
How are you, Keith? Are you well?
Keith and Keith. Yeah, much better than
Keith?
I was the last few days, which is great anyway.
Good, you sound better.
Oh yeah, just a little bit, I'd say, just a little bit. But we'll obviously get on to the First Division games. We'll review them. We'll give our predictions for Monday's games as well. So just in case people didn't know, there are games on Monday as well. But we'll start off with, I was going to start off with Bray and Galway, but actually I'll start off with the postponement even of Treaty and Longford. And how unlucky have Longford been? I mean, we're a decent chunk into the season. Like most teams have 4 games gone, we've a month in. But they've had, 2 postponements and obviously missed out 1 week because of the 9-team league. To be fair to Treaty, they've only played 2 matches themselves. So you'd be very disappointed as a Treaty fan, but particularly as a Longford fan, their season hasn't got going at all, has it?
Has to be frustrating. I know the Longford fans were an hour from the ground last night and the game was called off. Like, obviously, as you said, they were idle last time out. It's not a good image for the league, you know. I know there's nothing you can do for postponements and all, but Treaty that have had 2 home games postponed, and it says a lot about the pitch. I know the club unfortunately don't look after the pitch. It's more they rent that off whoever or whatever. But it can't be good for Longford in terms of the management, how they want to set their teams up. I know they had a 0-0 in their only game, but like, I'd say Gary's very frustrated up at Longford because he's trying to bed in a new team and he's played 1 game. You know, he can't do much of that.
Yeah, exactly. It took a couple of weeks to actually play that 1 game and then the postponement again. Now, to be fair, at least they're playing Monday. They're probably lucky actually that the games have come around Monday from their point of view, because if they had to wait till next Friday, like, it would do their nothing, to be fair, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Play us on Monday. So it'll be an interesting game. Obviously, 5-6x Bray against Bray or Cobh, whatever you want to call them.
I think people's minds are mangled at this stage, aren't they, to be fair? But we'll move on to Bray, and Finch Bray Wanderers 1, Galway United 3 at the Carlisle grounds. And obviously Dave Hurley penalty after 53 minutes. Walsh made it 2 in 67. Hugh Douglas at 69 made it 2-1, and Shane Doherty in the last minute 3-1. This was a result that you personally expected, wasn't it? But how did the game pan out? And was the penalty a fair decision for you? You're obviously at the game.
From where it was sat, it looked like Danny Blackburn had gotten the ball. But I've seen a video back from behind the goal. Someone videoed it, and Adiamo clearly gets to the ball first, and Blackburn goes through the back of him. So the referee was there. So I know the commentators on LOI TV thought it was harsh. But no, it was definitely a penalty for me. Definitely penalty.
Yeah, because it's difficult. I've seen that image as well, and I thought the same, but I haven't seen the other image you're talking about. So depending on what angles you're looking at, it can change the complexion of a decision. So I'm always, slow to maybe say, oh, that was a definite penalty from a certain distance or certain angle and that. But it's interesting that you say from the other angle it wasn't a penalty, basically. Or was a penalty rather, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Hurley put the ball away. Like, Kelly went the right way, and he wasn't saving it though. It was a fine penalty. Galway went 1 up, like, and kind of, as I said in the preview show with Jamie the other day, I was expecting this result. The shocking thing for me was that Bray scored, because they haven't really created much this season, and it was a typical goal for Bray, and that came after Galway second, Stephen Walsh, who played left fullback for Galway last season, and now he seems to be playing more up top, which is a weird one.
Yeah, he scored last week as well, actually, didn't he? Or one of the recent weeks he scored as well.
Yeah. So,
that goal, Michael Kelly, should do better.
Have you seen the footage? Yeah, I mean, Kelly comes out, and I mean, if you're going to come out, you come out the full way. He came, he stopped, and then Stephen Walsh put the ball around him, and he didn't need to be out that far. I mean, there was cover there, and it was one pass that got him into the position he got into, and that was it. 2-0. And at that stage, you're thinking, is it going to be like the Cork game? Is it going to be like 3-4-5? You know.
But obviously, they got a goal back a couple of minutes later from that man, Hughie Douglas. And I suppose if there's one player that you can never, that you can really rely on, I think it's Hugh Douglas. No matter where he plays, he kind of plays with his heart in his sleeve, doesn't he? He's that type of player, isn't he, Hugh Douglas?
Yeah, he's Bray through and through. Like, he obviously left for Drogheda a few years ago. He brought him up there, but he's the heart of a lion. He'll put his foot, he'll put his head in there all the time, and you can't fault Hughie's effort. You absolutely can't fault his effort. He's from just down the road from the Carlisle grounds, and as you might know, his grandfather played for Bray years and years and years ago. So it was a typical Hughie goal from a set piece. Clifford played the ball in and headed to the bottom corner. Now, in fairness, after that, Bray did. They didn't threaten that much, but they did give it a go. And then obviously Galway broke late on. Shane Doherty, another substitute, and 3-1. Probably second half was probably a fair result. There was nothing in the first half. But what I will say is, Keith, the football that Bray are playing, Michael Kelly, our goalkeeper, he had the ball anytime he had possession, whether it be in his hands or a goal kick, he kicked it long. There was never anything. There was never any fullback shown for the ball, for a short ball, throw out, nothing. So 98% of the time, he kicked the ball long, which is very frustrating.
And this is without a big man as such up front as well. I mean, Manley wasn't playing in this game. He certainly didn't start. He made come on, did he? But was it Curtis Byrne who started, wasn't it?
Marty was up top, and then Curtis was in behind. So it was, we actually said it at the game. They're playing these long balls, and there's no one. Our biggest player playing centre half, Hughie Douglas. So like the midfield, Conor Clifford at one stage shouted at the goalkeeper, and I don't know what he shouted, but you could visibly see he was frustrated at the fact that the balls were bypassing midfield. So I mean, if you're not getting the ball,
coming from Keith, do you think that's coming from the management, or
who knows? I actually feel sorry for it has to be, because last season we would have played from the back. Gary Cronin had them playing from the back. Now it's just lump ball, and Cobh had that last season. You know yourself, just throwing the ball up there.
One and one usually makes two, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, they're probably hoping you put 10 balls in the box and you score one. Like, I mean,
I feel sorry. From Galway's point of view, how did they look to you as a team, and how did they play generally? Conor McCormick in the middle of the park and Hurley are quite strong, aren't they?
Yeah. I only said to my friend, I was like, who would you have, Clifford or McCormick? And they're kind of, McCormick and Clifford are similar players. McCormick
Clifford might look better though if he was in the Galway team though at this minute.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hurley, fine player, big lad. Typical John Caulfield team. Now, in fairness, Galway didn't play the ball on the deck much either. I know Conor Kearns kicked a lot of balls, but at the end of the day, they got the job done. Bray didn't. So
yeah. I mean, I was going to say there, Adeyemo obviously played up front for Galway as well. And obviously, he was at Drogheda in and out of the team. How's he looking at the moment? How did he perform in the game?
He gave Bray, a number of times in the first half. He was playing off the shoulder, and he got through a couple of times. Obviously, Hughie's wouldn't be as fast as Adeyemo, but there was a few times, and obviously he got taken down for the penalty as well. So he did cause Bray a couple of problems at the back.
Yeah, now it obviously finished in the Southeast Derby, Waterford FC 2, Wexford FC 1. Junior a penalty after 7 minutes. Then he had Crowley equalising for a free kick on 29, and Patterson wrapped up the score in 34 to Waterford 2-1 win. The penalty, we both saw highlights of this game. The penalty, I think it was a penalty. It looked like just handball, basically, hand to God situation. So there's not much you can say there. But looking through the highlights anyway, and I don't know what Waterford fans will generally think about this. Let us know in the comments. But Wexford looked like they were very unlucky to lose that game, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly from the highlights I've seen, they had a number of chances. Dean Corcoran, there was a couple of times. Aaron Dobbs went through a couple of times as well, and he had half chances. And it looked like Wexford are playing nice football, and they've getting into positions to create these chances. Dinny Guinea Corcoran's going to score goals in that division, you know. But like, I think Wexford would be the fourth team in the playoff after Galway, Cork, and Waterford. I think after the show last night, and I know the earlier on this season was a treaty bet them 5-1, I think, in the open night.
They've recovered very well since, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've had a couple of wins and a very decent performance in the RC against arguably the strongest team in the league.
Absolutely. And like Bray were down there a few weeks ago, and they didn't have the chances that Wexford had. And maybe if they had put one of them away, it might have been a different scoreline.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just looking at Wexford's team as well. Like, they have experience, like the Hunt, Goal, Fitzgerald, Corcoran, as you mentioned there. But then they have young players like, Sullivan, who came in from Bowes, and, Dobbs and Davis. They're players, they're kind of terrier type forwards, aren't they? Their movement can be quite good, and get them in around Corcoran and just ask Corcoran, if he gets chances put in the net, not do as much running as he needs to do. And suddenly, you've got a forward line that can cause issue. And the Waterford defence did seem to be at 6s and 7s at times. I mean, they'd be happy, Waterford, though, because they'll feel like they got out of jail and they got 3 points. Because, again, that's how you win leagues as well, because they're not going to come out and dominate teams every week. Maybe they underestimate Wexford a little bit as well, because they've had a fine start, Waterford. But, they'd be delighted to get the win anyway, despite maybe not performing to their best, really.
Absolutely. I mean, Waterford are obviously tipped to win the league. A lot of people have been tipping them to win the league. Patterson on the wing, fine player, and obviously Junior. That was Junior's 4th goal of the season, I believe, in 4 games. So,
they're full of Premier Division players, though, aren't they? Even Brian Murphy still, young Dara Power, Anthony Wordsworth, as you mentioned, the 2 boys there, Patterson and but even their bench, look at Nolan, and some of the players on the bench and that came on. To be fair, you've got Niall O'Keefe, and you've got Naya as well, who came in for Shelburne, who's good quality as well. So as the season goes on, they're going to have that, and I think they're that good that they can play poorly sometimes and get results like they did against Wexford. But as you said, going forward, it's very interesting to see how Wexford do this season. As I said, good mix of experience and youth there as well. But for them to be coming away from Waterford, genuinely disappointed that they didn't pick up anything, it's probably, a good thing as well from their point of view, really, isn't it?
Yeah, because obviously Wexford were the whipping boys of the league last season. So the progress they've made in the off season, and as you said, they brought in experience. They had Lorcan Fitzgerald there last year. He's their player coach. He'll help the young lads along, and obviously Dinny, he'll help Dobbs and Davis along as well. So nice mix, absolutely nice mix for them.
Yeah, and I think the other side of it is that Ian Ryan seemed to improve bits and pieces when he came in last year as well, and has obviously made additions to that squad. So I think he's been a shrewd appointment. Look, he's used to working with young players at UCD, but he's not stupid either. So he's recognised. I think Fitzgerald was there before he came in, I think, as far as I remember, wasn't he? I think he might have been, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys. I think he might have been just about. But he's recognised, they need experience, and the likes of Dinny Cork. Because even the likes of your Aaron Dobbs, young player, but he's experienced. Like, he's played recently in the Premier Division. Connor Davis, I know he's had injury issues and that. But, you know what I mean? Again, he's bringing in players with experience. Because before that, I think Wexford were a team of players that were essentially youth products from a Bowes or a Pats or something like that, with no experience first team football. But if you mix those things together, then you might have an interesting cocktail. And I can see them having a good season. Certainly if they don't finish in the playoffs, if you finish the playoffs, I think it'd be amazing. But if they don't, they're not going to be near the bottom of the league like they have been as such in the last few seasons. So it's brilliant to see from their point of view. But as I said, I think Ian Morris will be disappointed with the performance, but he'll be ultimately happy enough of where Waterford are at this minute in time, won't he?
Yeah, it's the results business, isn't it? They've 10 points from 4 games, so they're already clear of the chasing pack. So if I see Morris happy, you're getting results. I know last week against Galway they were 2-0 up. Maybe should have held on to that for 4 weeks in a row. But you get games like that, and I'd certainly be happy. I'd love to be in Waterford's position with 10 points. Let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking about the chasing pack, and one of them, Cork City, beat Cobh Ramblers 2-0 in the Munster Derby. Ali Gilchrist opened the score, and Cian Murphy made it 2-0 in the second half. Good win for Cork City. Ultimately they needed the win just to kind of keep near the top of the table. They had a good performance a couple of weeks ago, you see, against Galway, and they were beaten, but it was a good performance. And recently they drew with Longford and obviously won 6-0 against Bray. And I'm sure you didn't want that mentioned again at the start of the season. But look, it has been a solid start for them, and particularly the fact that, there's obviously personal issues with Colin Healy. We don't know what they are, but there's obviously something bad there, to actually, leave the job temporarily anyway. So, they'd be happy enough with the 3 points. And as for Cobh, Cobh have a lot of young players, but they have a lot of experience as well. And lads who played with Cork City, Brian Whitmarsh and Dale Holland and players of that frat will come in the season, John Cavan and that. They'll be disappointed enough, I think, with the result in this game.
Yeah, first of all, I must apologise to Tom Stafford, a Cobh fan. Last week he was giving out that we didn't mention that the Cobh team actually have experience, and as you mentioned, they have Cabinet, Whitmarsh has come back from Cork, Conor Drinnan as well has experience, Holland. Look, Cobh, it's a tough place to go. I know the game is in Turner's Cross last night, but Cobh trouble sizing. They play Bray next week, so Keane Murphy's off the mark for Cork, and Ali Gilchrist was a shrewd sign for Cork, I think, during the off season. He's been around the league and he knows his stuff. So I think Cork, and as you mentioned already with the Healy, unfortunately he had to take a break from taking the team. I actually thought it back a little bit, but they've had all the right results in the last few weeks. Obviously against Galway, they lost the game, even though Galway had 10 men. But look, there was 4,500 in Turner's Cross last night. So unbelievable. If they have that crowd backing them up this season, the crowd will add
in the Premier.
Absolutely. But the crowd will add an extra bite to match nights for Cork, and it's something a lot of teams in the first division won't have. So it can only help them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at their team here as well, and the first 11 looked almost as good as Waterford. The question is the squad as the season goes on. Like their backline, Kevin O'Connor, Gilchrist, Keane Coleman, and Hackinen. That's a pretty good backline, isn't it? That's arguably better than Waterford's actually. The backline, Yeah.
They were very, very solid against Bray, and I believe Keane Coleman got an injury last night. Let's hope for Cork's sake it wasn't too bad of an injury.
He's a big leader for them.
He's a good player. And as I said to Jamie the other day, I think last season boded well for Cork. They were able to bed the young players in, and they've brought in experience. Kevin O'Connor's back, and Gilchrist back in there. McGlade's been around the league. He's out injured at the moment. But again, a bit like Wexford, they have that experience and they have that young talent there. So look, Cork will probably be happy to get a playoff spot, given Waterford strong they are, and they'll take their chances in the playoffs against whoever, because I think they're a good side.
Yeah, because after that it's anyone's game, you know what I mean. I think Matt Healy as well, a young player, made his first appearance for the club as well. He's come through the youth academy there, so that's obviously good for them as well. Cobh, they need to score goals, so I think. I know they've got Whitmarsh at the club, and he's a good player. He reminds me of Carlos Tevez in a way. He's kind of that bulky, strong lad, and he gets around the pitch. You know what I mean? He's a threat. He's a threat for defenders. But when he was at Cork as well, you see, he was in a partnership with Keane Murphy. Seemed to get the best out of him. So maybe Cobh will be looking to do something around that as well. But they'll obviously need to score goals. We've got Drynan as well there, is capable of scoring goals as well. But their performances have been, I think, solid so far. But they just need to try and create those chances and put the ball in the back of the net to really be a threat, don't they?
But that's what ultimately wins games. You have to put the ball in the back of the net. Was it 0-0 they drew at Longford a few weeks ago? So, look, I think Cobh, obviously, the last 2 seasons they've been down around the bottom of the league, so they'll be hoping to push on. And Darren Murphy's a young, up-and-coming manager as well, so he'll be hoping to get them. Cork are always going to be the biggest team, and Cobh fans won't like saying this, but if you're a good player in Cork or Cobh, you're going to play for Cork City, not Cobh, fortunately. So for them, but yeah, no, I think Cobh has said it before. To be fair, they do a lot of great work, community work, and
I think the biggest thing for likes of Cobh, I'm honest with you, like if they can get things right in the pitch, brilliant, and get into playoffs, etc., etc. But I always think the biggest thing is there's a club there. They actually have a club. Like a lot of clubs, in their position would maybe go for the stars and kind of overpay and all that kind of stuff and put in money that and ruin the club basically. But they're kind of Wexford a little bit like that as well, but they understand where they are, let's say, and they understand that it can be a slow progress to try and improve. And they're doing a lot of good work actually in the academies as well. I noticed some of the results have really improved recently as well, so that's fantastic for them. I suppose that's all the matches, isn't it? Yeah, we'll go on to Monday's matches and just give our predictions, Keith, as well. So speaking of Cobh, they go to Athlone. I think Athlone have been very poor so far this season. Obviously, Martin Russell's in there. Good manager, well-respected manager. You would have seen him as a player, as would I. One of a left foot. But with Athlone, they kind of changed tack from last season. They kind of brought in a lot of maybe big-name players that were almost rejected by other clubs, and it didn't really work. This season, they brought in a lot of new players late in the day, and quite a few from outside Ireland as well. So it's been very difficult to judge. However, the results so far would suggest that they're a long way of gelling. How do you see them getting on against Cobh?
I don't know. I think this is a game Cobh need to be highlighting for a win, really. Just going back on Cobh, their bench last night, I don't know what the average age was, 20, 21. So they have a young bench, inexperienced bench. But look, is this game in Athlone?
In Athlone, yeah.
Athlone, obviously they're used to their own pitch, to the Ashrown, stuff like that. I don't know a lot about them. I don't know a lot about the players they brought in. I don't
think anybody does, Keith, and that's almost the point. Like including their own people, like you know what I mean. That's the point. But the results so far, they haven't been great. So if it could be a case of some of these players are brought in, they do improve as the season goes on. But I just feel like they're back to square one a little bit this season. Athlone.
It actually surprised me when Martin Russell went in there. What was behind that? Russell's a good old coach. He was at Bray, he turned Bray around when he was in there for a couple of games. So
unless he sees it and he knows that it's a long project, because I think Athlone, I was actually talking about Cobh there a second ago, but I think Athlone tried to run before they could walk a bit last season a little bit.
Absolutely.
And then they kind of started scratching their heads and kind of went back to square one, and they're kind of gone back to basics again. So last year feels like a waste for Athlone, in my opinion.
Yeah, they had a fantastic start last season. I think there were 5
the first 4 games, didn't they? Didn't they win the first 4?
And one of them was in the Carlisle. Curtis Bourne actually scored 2 goals against Bray. So you hit the nail on the head. I think they're trying to run before they can walk. Athlone was always a strange one. When you go up there, there's the crowd. There's not that many diehard Athlone. I don't know any Athlone Town fans. I know Bray aren't the biggest of teams either, but I think if I could put my bets on here, I'd go with her Cobh 2-1 win.
1-0 Cobh, I think, and Athlone, I don't think they're too happy with that. But I suppose we move on next to Longford and Bray, and again, hard to predict this one because, as you said, Gary Cronin, the manager, there's about 4 or 5 Bray lads that will probably start in this game as well. How do you see this one, I suppose, from a Bray point of view, first of all?
They have to get something from the game, Keith. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if they end up coming away from Bishopsgate with nothing, that's 4 defeats in a row, rock bottom. So they need to start picking up points. And I know people will be saying you've played the full-time teams in the league, your Corks, your Galways, but I mean, Longford, Gary Cronin will be out to beat Bray. After what happens after the playoff or during the playoff, when it came out that there was the merger or the takeover, whatever way you want to paint it, he will be out too. And I know some of the players, your Darren Cravens, your Barnetts, Sam Verdon's gone up there, Daniel Jones, they will be able to beat Bray.
How many of them would you actually like that Bray, by the way, still?
At the moment?
Of those players, that went to Longford, let's say.
I certainly would have hung on to Barnett. He was our best player the last 3 seasons. Darren Craven, we signed from Malahide last season. And he took time to gel into the team. but he came into his own towards the end of the season, and he had a crucial role to play in the playoff. And Jones, he only came in during the summer break, and it took him time to he played non-league in England, so he was all right. Verdon was Verdon. He came in. I didn't really fancy him, but he's done a good job when he was at Longford. So, but scoreline, I think Gary Cronin's team don't concede many goals, so it'd be tough. It'd be tough for Bray to get a goal up there. So I'll go with a 1-0 Longford.
1-0 Longford. I'll go for a 1-1 draw there. We'll move on to Galway. United and Treaty, and of course Treaty as well have only played 2 matches. And one of them was a brilliant win against 5-1 win against Wexford. And they drew their other game, didn't they? Yeah, so they're actually unbeaten in 2 games. Very impressive, isn't it? They go to Galway next, and obviously Galway have been fairly impressive so far, haven't they? So how do you see that one? Is it difficult to see Treaty getting something out of there, even though they can be very dogged, can't they?
They can be very dogged. The only thing is, Keith, I can't see Treaty doing what he did last season. I can't see them being, as I think many things might find them out, might know how they play football. Tommy Barrett's a good old manager. He's good to have on board. But they're going to Terrylands, and John Caulfield, as I said already, he's a shrewd manager, and if he gets a 1-0 win, he'd be delighted. But I can see Galway getting a couple of goals on Monday night for sure. There's players there like Wilson Waweru was on the bench the other night, last night against Bray, so he may come back into the side. I'm not sure. I don't know. Treaty are a weird one, and as they haven't had any home games, so it's hard to judge them fully with only 2 away games. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking there's your talking as well, but I think I have to go for Galway as well. I think you're right about Treaty. They probably won't do quite as well as they did last season, but they're in a position where it almost doesn't matter how well they do or how bad they do, because they're not a club that we have to go up, that kind of way. So they're still part-time and that kind of thing as well. They're trying to build up. So last season was more of a bonus of how they did, wasn't it, to be fair? But I'll go for Galway as well. 2-1 maybe, though. Final game is going to be an interesting one. It's obviously Cork City. Speak that mic a bit. Cork City taking on Waterford, and obviously 3 points in it in the table. And this is a match. This is going to be a sellout for sure, isn't it, against Waterford on Monday night?
Yeah, you'd be hoping. I was actually going to say like a Monday night. I don't know what type of fan base they'll get for a Monday night game, but
the fact it's Waterford though, and Waterford are good side, they're top. And it's the first derby in a few years. I think that'll help. If it was the other way around, if Cork were playing their Friday match on the Monday, maybe it mightn't have that effect. But it's probably good that it's Waterford on the Monday night, I think.
Yeah. And Waterford will bring a nice travelling crowd with them as well. It's only down the road. So this is probably the biggest game of the season so far. It's going to tell a lot about both sides. So to be honest, I think both would be happy with a draw. I think Cork City would be happy to take a draw, and Waterford, Eamar is going down to Cork with how many fans? 5,000-6,000. If they turn up, I think he'd be delighted with a draw as well. And I think it could be a high scoring draw as well. I'd probably go with a 2-2. Because Cork, although they're good at the back, Waterford are good going forward as well. So there's going to be chances throughout this game. So yeah, 2-2 draw, I think, for that game.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think Waterford over the course of the season will do enough to win the league. But I think on a 1-1 match like this early in the season as well, as you said, that was in my head as well. Cork are very good defensively, in my opinion, the best back four in the league. But Waterford have the best attack in the league. So that always is an interesting dynamic coming into these kind of games. So look, midfield will tell a lot as well. You've got Coffey and Bulger in midfield for Cork as well. You've got the likes of Wordsworth in midfield. Maybe Shane Griffin will play, or O'Keefe for Waterford as well. They rotate a little bit. So I think I'm delaying what I think here, really, by talking, because it's a tough one to call. But I'm going to push the boat out even and say Cork City might nick this one 1-0. So, guys, look, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed before. Hit your bell notification button. Like the video if you like the content, and let us know your predictions in the comments and your thoughts overall. Thanks for watching. Cheers, Keith.
Cheers, Keith. Take care.